The only reasonable conclusion to draw is that members of Britain's Jewish community are suffering a level of hatred and abuse which is frankly shameful. The situation in the Middle East does not and will never give anyone the right to harass or intimidate others. I repeat, Madam Deputy Speaker, no one ever has that right. This government will not stand for anti-Semitism of any kind. To the anti-Semites, we say this: you will not win. You will be shown up for the despicable racists you are. And to our Jewish friends and colleagues, I say this: we stand with you, we understand your fears, and we share your pain. We will protect you today, tomorrow, and always.
We must never relent in our work to root it out, something I know the whole House will want to affirm. We stand ready to work with the government on this. I think all sides of the House will want us to stand together with Jewish communities across the country in solidarity against hatred, against prejudice, against anti-Semitism in all its forms. All of us must stand together and say anti-Semitism must never have any place in the United Kingdom.
And we now come to, as personnel change. Statement, Minister Chris Philp.
With permission, Madam Deputy Speaker, I will make a statement on anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom. Last week, the Community Security Trust published its latest report on anti-Semitic incidents. It made for deeply disturbing reading. It showed there were 4,103 instances of anti-Jewish racist hatred recorded across the UK in 2023. That is the highest annual total ever reported to the Community Security Trust. It is a 147% rise from the 1,662 anti-Semitic incidents the previous year, and 81% higher than the previous yearly record of 2,261 incidents reported in 2021. Most shockingly, over two-thirds of the incidents reported last year occurred on or after October the 7th, when Hamas perpetrated its barbaric terrorist attack on Israel. The report also indicates that anti-Semitism began spiking before Israel's military response had begun. The week immediately following October the 7th saw 416 anti-Semitic incidents reported to the CST, higher than any subsequent week. Madam Deputy Speaker, the CST's findings, which tally with increases in offending reported by the police, are nothing short of a disgrace and an outrage. Examples highlighted in the report are shocking and reprehensible. I urge all members to read the report because it shines a light on the scale and character of this disgraceful problem. The only reasonable conclusion to draw is that members of Britain's Jewish community are suffering a level of hatred and abuse which is frankly shameful. There is no excuse for the behaviour outlined in the CST report or seen in some of the shocking incidents that have occurred recently. The situation in the Middle East does not and will never give anyone the right to harass or intimidate others. I repeat, Madam Deputy Speaker, no one ever has that right. This government will not stand for anti-Semitism of any kind. It is important to note the police have comprehensive powers to deal with abhorrent conduct of this nature. For example, in the case of public order offences, where there is proof of racial or religious hostility on the part of the offender, offenders will be charged with racially or religiously aggravated versions of those offences, which will result in an uplift being added to their sentence. Furthermore, inciting racial hatred is an offence under the Public Order Act 1986, and anyone engaged in that appalling behaviour should expect to be arrested. Whenever and wherever criminality involving anti-Semitism occurs, this government expects the police to fully investigate the incident and work with the Crown Prosecution Service to bring the perpetrators to justice. Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have been clear both before and since the October 7th attacks that we will do whatever it takes to keep Britain's Jewish community safe. We have taken strong steps to confront the poison of anti-Semitism head on. We have increased funding to bolster security at Jewish schools, synagogues and other sites. This means a total of £36 million will be made available for these crucial protective measures across 2023-24 and the following financial year. The Community Security Trust is an essential partner in our efforts to keep the Jewish community safe, and I pay tribute to them and the brilliant work they do. The Home Office meet regularly with them and we cooperate closely with the CST. We keep a constant dialogue open, and I can tell the House that both the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister have regular meetings with them. But of course it should sadden us that these kind of precautions are necessary in the UK in 2024. But the work of organisations like the CST is more important than ever, and we must remain vigilant. That includes sending the message from this House, I hope across the whole House, loud and clear, that any instance of criminal behaviour will be identified and those responsible caught and punished. We are working closely with the police to ensure offending, including hate crime and expressions of force for terrorist organisations, are met with the full force of the law. The idea that anyone could celebrate or valorise Hamas for the appalling atrocities, the terrorist atrocities they perpetrated on October the 7th is beyond comprehension. It goes completely against the values of this country. Last month, we prescribed Hizb ut-Tahrir, an organisation that actively promotes and encourages terrorism and is responsible for spreading anti-Semitism. Hamas itself, of course, is already a proscribed organisation. Anyone who belongs to or invites or expresses support for a proscribed organisation is themselves committing offence. The penalties upon conviction are a maximum term of 14 years in prison and/or an unlimited fine. The right to protest, of course, is a fundamental part of our democracy, but that right cannot be exercised in a way which intimidates others or invokes fear in them. It is totally unacceptable where a small minority incite hatred and commit crimes. The police have powers to deal with that, and we expect them to act. Where further powers are needed, we will not hesitate to act, which is why we recently announced a new package of measures to crack down on dangerous disorder, in particular that committed at protests. Madam Deputy Speaker, the CST's findings on incidents within the sphere of higher education were especially disturbing. No one should be subject to anti-Semitic abuse while at university. Every effort must be taken to prevent hatred flourishing in schools, universities and colleges, and that is why we announced a further £7 million of funding to help tackle anti-Semitism in education. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to be clear, we are equally unwavering in our stance towards hatred and abuse directed at British Muslims. The government has been in regular contact with representatives of the Muslim community, and we are aware of an increased number of reports of anti-Muslim hatred as well. That is, of course, unacceptable, and we've made additional funding available for protective security measures at mosques and Muslim faith schools. Madam Deputy Speaker, last month we marked Holocaust Memorial Day. Just as we remember the horrors of the past, we must remain alert to present-day dangers. Anti-Semitism is an ancient hatred which has reared its ugly head in the most abhorrent and evil ways throughout history. The CST's findings show that we have much, much more to do if we are to rid our society of this poison. But this government will never stop trying. We will never give up on this fight. It matters too much. And of course, that extends to ensuring members of Parliament are protected from acts of similar hatred, which some members have suffered. I'm thinking particularly of the member for Finchley and Golders Green in the Chamber, whose office suffered a terrible arson attack just a few weeks ago. To the anti-Semites, we say this: you will not win. You will be shown up for the despicable racists you are. And to our Jewish friends and colleagues, I say this: we stand with you, we understand your fears, and we share your pain. We will protect you today, tomorrow, and always. I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the Minister's statement and advance sight of it? The appalling and intolerable rise in anti-Semitism that we have seen in Britain in recent months, set out in the report of the Community Security Trust last week, is a stain on our society. We must never relent in our work to root it out, something I know the whole House will want to affirm. Over 4,000 incidents in 2023 alone are a urgent reminder of the responsibility on all of us to stamp out the scourge of anti-Semitism wherever it's found, and I want to join with the Minister in thanking the CST for the remarkable and tireless work they do each day alongside the police to keep our Jewish communities safe. Having supported and worked with them over very many years, I know the incredible forensic work they do on monitoring anti-Semitism, but also the physical protection that they provide for Jewish schools, synagogues and other community events. We owe them our thanks. So we welcome and support the government's commitment of additional funding for the CST. There are incidents that they report include a violent, abusive attack on a Jewish man on his way home from synagogue, the desecration of Jewish cemeteries, a 200% increase in anti-Semitic incidents at universities, and just 10 days ago, we saw a Jewish student residence in Leeds, the Hillel House, vandalised with anti-Semitic graffiti. For the years that they are studying, universities are students' homes. No one should ever feel unsafe in their home, but wherever they are, everybody has the right to live in freedom from fear. And the CST's report also found the number of online incidents of anti-Semitism rising by 257%, and ancient hatred being resuscitated through modern means to proliferate and to promote extremism. And I agree with the Minister that it is unconscionable that one of the steepest surges in anti-Semitism came in the week following Hamas's barbaric terrorist attack on Israel on October the 7th, the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust, with individuals in this country celebrating those scenes of unimaginable horror. There must be zero tolerance for the glorification of proscribed terrorist groups on Britain's streets. We support the prescribing of Hizb ut-Tahrir and also ensuring that anti-Semitic hate crimes always face the full force of the law. Madam Deputy Speaker, in the weeks following the 7th of October, I met with CST and Tell Mama together, Tell Mama, who monitor Islamophobia and who have also identified a huge increase in Islamophobic incidents and hate. And they were united in their call for an end to hatred and prejudice, an end to anti-Semitism, an end to Islamophobia. And we must never allow the terrible events and conflicts in the Middle East, which do cause deep distress across our communities, but we must never allow them to lead to increased tension, hatred, prejudice, abuse or crimes here in our communities at home. And so I welcome the points the Minister made about ensuring where there are extremist incidents on marches, that those are also addressed with the full force of the law. But can I press him to go further in a few key areas? Firstly, the countering extremism strategy is now 8 years out of date. There are reports that the work has been delayed again. Can the Minister tell us when the government will come forward with an updated strategy? The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, the government's own experts, have warned there is a gap in the law around hateful extremism, which is allowing toxic anti-Semitic views and conspiracy theories to be spread and making it harder to police them. I have asked this of ministers before. Can he update us on what action is being taken? Will the government also look urgently again at the decision that ministers took around a year ago to downgrade the reporting for non-crime hate incidents, particularly around Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, to ensure that those who engage in violent and vitriolic religious hatred can always be properly monitored and identified by the police? And I ask him finally particularly about online anti-Semitism, which has risen. We've seen, for example, a huge increase on X, formerly Twitter, at the same time as there's been seen a downgrading in some of their monitoring and standards. Has the government raised this directly with Elon Musk and X? And can I urge them to do so and to set out how the Online Harms Bill will address this? Because there are real concerns that this will not go far enough to address these changes. We stand ready to work with the government on this. I think all sides of the House will want us to stand together with Jewish communities across the country in solidarity against hatred, against prejudice, against anti-Semitism in all its forms. All of us must stand together and say anti-Semitism must never have any place in the United Kingdom.
Minister.
Well, I thank the Shadow Home Secretary for her comments and her questions. She asked about protests. I completely agree that where people seek to intimidate others, where they seek to incite racial hatred, where they seek to glorify terrorism, that is completely unacceptable. In fact, it is illegal. The police have made 600 arrests at protests since October the 7th, and we in government are urging the police to use all of their powers to make sure hatred is not incited in the course of the marches that have happened. She asked about online safety. Quite rightly, it's where a great deal of hatred is fomented. We are engaging with online platforms on a very, very regular basis. In fact, I think the Home Secretary is due to travel to California next week to discuss these issues, amongst others. But the Online Safety Act contains, I think from memory, in Schedule 7, a list of priority offences. And I think inciting hatred is one of those priority offences. And in relation to those priority offences, large social media platforms will, when that section of the Act comes into force, be under an obligation to take proactive steps, not retrospective steps after the event, but proactive steps in advance to prevent priority offences taking place, and that will include hate crime of the kind that she mentioned. She asked about non-crime hate incidents. So those changes to the guidance were designed to make sure that sort of very minor spats between neighbours or expressions of essentially legitimate political views do not end up wasting police time by getting recorded. Things that don't meet the criminal threshold, where they might be useful in pursuing a criminal investigation later, will still be recorded. And to be clear, inciting racial hatred is a criminal offence under, I think, Section 17 and 18 of the Public Order Act 1986. Causing harassment, alarm and distress through threatening and abusive language or causing fear of violence is an offence under Sections 4, 4A and 5 of the Public Order Act 1986, and there are various other criminal offences as well. So those things meet the criminal threshold and therefore are not affected by any change to non-crime hate incident recording rules in any event. In relation to updating the law and the approach to extremism, that is something that is under continual review. My right honourable friend, the Deluxe Secretary in particular, I know spends a great deal of time and is spending time considering the question of extremism. In relation to criminal law, we announced various changes just a week or two ago that we intend to legislate for via government amendments to the Criminal Justice Bill when it comes back to the House for report stage in a few weeks' time. And those measures will tighten up a number of areas relating to protest, including removing the reasonable and lawful excuse defence to various public order offences, making it easier for the police to have a blanket prohibition on face coverings, which are often menacing, but also make it difficult to identify people committing criminal offences at protests, making it an offence to climb on key war memorials, which is grossly disrespectful, and other measures as well. We keep it under continual review, so if there are further changes to the law, the Right Honourable Lady can be assured we will make them. It is this government's view that anti-Semitism is a scourge that must be fought online, it must be fought on the streets, through the law and through the courts, and I'm sure this whole House will be united in that fight.